When it comes to tacos, fresh is always best. Once you start making fresh tortillas, you'll never look back. It's a world of a difference in flavor from pre-made tortillas. And they only take 20 minutes to make on any given Taco Tuesday. If you mix up the dough in the morning, you can press the tortillas out at night in less time. Or even make it the night before and press it anytime during the week when you're making tacos. So I start off with the masa flour. Masa is basically corn that's been processed with a little bit of lime. So it's very different than corn flour, okay? So make sure when you're making your own tortillas, you seek out masa flour. So I'm gonna start off with some masa flour in the bowl. I'm gonna add a little bit of cornstarch. Now you don't have to add cornstarch to this. The reason I like to add cornstarch is if I'm gonna make these in a large batch and I'm gonna make the dough, these will keep the next day, which is quite nice. So as you actually press out the tortillas and cook them, you can actually keep them, when there's cornstarch in it gives the pliability a little bit more. So you can have them left over without being so brittle. Okay, let's add a little bit of sea salt. Okay, and I'm gonna use a little bit of warm water. Warm water is gonna, I just find it blends a little bit nicer. So, and the nice thing about working with masa opposed to working with a gluten-based flour is that a gluten-based flour is not so forgiving. Whereas when you're working with masa, you can overwork it. And if you overwork it, you just add a little more water, you add a little more flour. Okay? It's a gluten-free option, and these are great to make ahead of time. So you can see here that I'm just kind of crumbling it through my fingertips here, just making sure the water is evenly distributed. I'm just adding water slowly. I like to do this by hand because you can actually feel the texture that you're trying to create. This is also something to get the kids involved with. My kids love making this tortilla dough. So I'm gonna go ahead and just press that, just gathering all that masa. And you're getting it to the point to where it's hydrating. So once you get it to the place that you're comfortable with, which I'll show you the final texture that you're looking for, you want to let it sit for a little while. Okay, you want to let it sit covered in a bowl for at least 15 to 20 minutes at minimum. And what I find is letting it sit for a little while, it helps it hydrate, okay? Because that masa is going to hydrate with that warm water pretty quickly. And you'll be able to see if you need to add a little more masa or add a little bit more water, which I'll show you those little tips here in just a sec here. All right, so you want to make sure that it holds up into a ball. Okay, when I learned how to make tortillas years back, I took a class right when I moved to Austin. And one of the cool little tips that she had mentioned, the teacher at the time, was that if you're rolling it out, first you have clean hands. When you're rolling it out and you have little specks of masa on your hand, almost like a little bit of sand on your hand, that means that you're at the right texture, okay? If it's gonna stick to your hand or if it's not gonna leave any small pieces of corn on there, that means that it's either too wet or too dry. So this looks like it's really nice. Okay, so we're gonna wrap this up and we're gonna let it sit for a good 15, 20 minutes. All right, this has been sitting for a little while. Just helps it hydrate, okay? Helps that masa hydrate nicely. Let's check it, make sure it's not too dry. And so the way you tell if it's too dry or not is if you're pressing into a ball and it's cracking, okay? This looks like it's really nice though. This is good to go. You wanna be able to form it into a ball, but you also want it to break apart in two, okay? So that's the texture that you're looking for a good masa flour, okay? So let's go ahead and now roll. Let's do a couple, let me show you the couple sizes. So I'm gonna do these a little bit smaller, okay, because these are gonna be street taco style. So if I'm making these for my family, I wouldn't necessarily do them this small, but since we're really focused on party foods, I'm gonna do them a little bit smaller here. Okay, so you gotta pre-roll a couple of them. get started. So there's a couple different presses you can get. There's more of the aluminum, cheaper press. I use this in case I can't find my favorite. Okay, but this is an aluminum one. It's a little bit lighter in weight, and it really doesn't have that much weight when you're actually pressing. So this is my press of preference. It's definitely way heavier, and the weight really helps when it comes to, you know, getting these tortillas at the consistency and thickness that I want. Okay. So what I'm gonna do, here's a little trick here, is I'm gonna take a Ziploc bag, a large Ziploc bag, and I'm just gonna go ahead and slice the top, slice the edges. Okay, so this is a good little trick. So you basically have now, this is perfect for a tortilla press. Okay, so let's get started here. So I'm gonna take this press, open it up, and grab one of those. Okay. Fold over, press down gently. And then as I'm pressing, you don't want to go fully with all your weight there. You just want to go so it's even. And some of these presses, they're a little uneven. So you want to just kind of turn it a little bit. And that looks good. Okay, that's the size that I want. And the easiest way to peel it off the plastic is basically peel it right off the plastic gently like so. Okay, so as I make these, I'm going to turn on the heat here in this cast iron to get these tortillas going. So I'm going to turn on a medium to low heat. First I'll turn on high and then bring it down to temperature. I'm going to use a little bit of spray on there. You don't need a lot of oil on this. Okay, so we're going to make these and we're going to set them aside. Let's make a couple more since we have a big pan here. So when I'm making tortillas and little tacos for a party, I make sure they're no more than like 3 bites, 4 bites. Okay, and these are nice handhelds to have to add to your party menu. You can also mix up the flavors with these tortillas. So if you wanted to add, you want to make a little bit of a, cilantro, jalapeno tortillas, you can make a cilantro jalapeno puree. Just make sure when you're using that puree to give it some color, you're also taking into account the moisture that it's bringing also. So you might need to reduce the water a little bit. Same thing if you're going to use any kind of additional powders, such as freeze-dried vegetable powders or other spices. You want to also make up by adding a little more water if you need to. All right, let's check out this heat. Make sure it's coming to heat. Let's lower that down to a low to medium. Let's go ahead and place those on. Those are just going to go straight on the cast iron. This is a nice size cast iron because you can get 4 on there, which is nice. All right, let's press a couple more while we're waiting for those. All right, so these are going to shrink in size a little bit as they cook. Starting to dry out a little bit on the edges. We're just going to go ahead and flip those over. Nice. All right, so we'll let those cook. Kind of dry out. You'll see it starts to remove itself starts to lift up a little bit from the pan when they're fully done. But these will come off pretty firm, okay? Pretty brittle and pretty firm. But once you actually put them in a towel or you put them in a tortilla warmer, it's gonna actually steam themselves. So they're gonna soften as they sit. So you can see that they're starting to lift up a little bit off of the surface, almost bubbling up. That means that they are done. So I'm gonna remove these. Now, like I said, they're a little brittle. Eating them right off of the pan, they're a little dry, they're a little brittle. But what's nice about these, like I said, is putting them directly in a warmer, they're gonna end up steaming and softening up. All right, so we just finished up these last of the shells. Let's go ahead and put those away. So I have a towel in here just to really, when they're a little bit firm and thicker, as I mentioned, I like these thicker tortillas. I like to put a towel in here in addition to the holder, just to really hold in that steam really well. So we're gonna set those aside and we're gonna make a couple variations of tacos right now. All right, let's make some fresh taco shells. When it comes to tacos, fresh is always best. Growing up, I didn't grow up here. Growing up in Austin, which I didn't. All right,